Welcome to the Valuable Podcast. I'm your host, Victor Sasanya, and today we are kicking off season 3 with a very, very special guest, episode 1. Honestly, this man to me is a friend, he's a leader, he's a mentor, a disciple, and it's funny how we met, which we'll go into it, but honestly, the first time we even spoke, it was like, this is someone that you can sort of do life with. So I'm very, very excited and proud to announce we have Nana Yaw Antiedu, also known as NYA, in the building.
Yo, bro.
How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm very good. It took a long while to get here where we are today in like person. I think it adds so much like color, so much excitement to actually sit down, especially with yourself as my first guest, and do this and just chop it up and just get involved.
Let's do it.
So do you still like live in Hackney now?
Yeah.
So when did you move to Hackney? Were you born there?
I was always born in Hackney. I was born in Hackney. Always lived here. Like most Hackney people, I was born in Homerton as well. So like Hackney born and bred, haven't moved.
You haven't moved from Hackney?
No.
And, as a young black man, Ghanaian family, what was it like back in the day growing up in Hackney?
It's interesting because I'm only starting to realize how my upbringing has shaped me now. So we both went to Warwick, You've graduated, I'm still there. But then I'm sort of realizing this thing called like a hood tax, because coming to Warwick is a very unique university to me, because it's like everyone's very expressive, they like to be themselves, etc. I find that like in the ends especially, we're very conditioned in some way to almost like not be too much or do too much or make too much of ourselves. So it's like coming into Warwick, that was the first like, hey, how I'm dressed now, back then why am I wearing Uggs as a man, why am I wearing Uggs? But it's like I think I've really been able to step out, but then in the ends I feel like people feel very restricted and confined. I found that like just like in most other areas, the main ways out the ends was either football, music, or the other illegal methods. And I think I grew up in a weird situation because I was quite like, I wouldn't say popular, but like I knew everyone. So I was very cool with the GMs because I used to play football with them, or I'd be at parties with them, etc. But
break it down.
So it's like, it's so weird because now when I look at pictures now of like old football teams I used to play for, like if you split in half and the ones who were involved in gangs now, it's like we all were on the same team. Now it's like two sides and they're all beefing each other, or that, like, which is so crazy because it's like at a point we were one. Do you get what I mean? We used to be on the same pitch and stuff. So it's like,
let me just quickly interrupt you. So GM is short for gang member. So when I meant break it down, I wanted them to break down what the terminology meant. But
having played football, I was like, me and those guys were cool, but then I was very cool with like the normal school kids as well. So it's like I was kind of in both sections, but not like too deeply in one or too deeply in the other. Like I think I've always almost had to carve out a unique path for myself.
To be honest, I noticed that about you, because what was so interesting to me is that yes, born and bred in Hackney, Homerton, you grew up there, you got involved in a lot of sports, went to Mossbourne community school, but from a young age, you didn't have that mentality of, cool, I'm going to get my grades, I'll do well for myself. I'm still cool with the gang members and some of my friends, but I'm going to do what I can to blow out the hood and just never return. Because you went to join the board for the London Legacy development, and that actually helps look back at Homerton, at Hackney, areas around there, and you're actively involved in making change in those communities. So like, what made you join as a board member, and to say one of the youngest board members?
Definitely. I think so. I joined that board when I was about 18. It was an amazing opportunity. I was headhunted as part of like the work I do with Badu, and like having led the Badu Mentoring Group, they saw the sort of community impact I have. I've never really had the idea of like moving out the ends, because ultimately like the ends made me, the ends shaped me, and that sort of thing. And like my life's almost mission has always been to leave the world a better place than I found it. So that means even in Hackney as well, like I wouldn't just get very successful for myself and move out Like, what about all the other kids as well? Like, I've got younger siblings, I've got friends who have younger siblings, and it's like my main role for the past 4 or 5 years has been to improve outcomes for those guys and for those guys as well. So in terms of moving out the ends, it's never been something that I idolize. Like, sorry if you live in Kent or Essex, but I see no appeal to go out to there. Like, I see no appeal.
And you called out to all the Nigerian and the aunties, the Ghanaians, that because even like everybody wants to move to Kent or Dartford.
I don't know why. What do you have? Is that it?
Nah, you're calling shots.
Yeah.
But I understand, and it's good that so you never actually had that mentality. It's good to hear. But I guess, so talk to me a bit more about the board members as a role, and so what the organisational is for.
The LLDC is the London Legacy Development Corporation. So on the Olympic Park, they're the planning organisation that are basically in charge of the Olympic Park. And being from Hackney, which is one of the 4 host boroughs for the Olympic Park, we basically I sit on the board that helps to make the decisions on that park. So this is like any new companies that want to move in. This is like new initiatives that the park are trying to make. Recently, I was on the East Bank Strategic Objectives Board as well, which is a secondary board to that. So what you would notice if you come to the Olympic Park is lots of huge corporates are coming. So VNA have now moved there. BBC are moving there. Sadler's Wells have moved there. UCL have a new campus over there. UAL have a new campus there as well. So lots of these huge organizations coming down, but how do we make sure that they're not almost like just coming down and bringing other people from far and wide to take the jobs and opportunities there as well? How do we make sure that the local community is also thriving, even as that sort of section of East London is thriving as well? So a lot of our focus has been on that sort of community impact piece as well, and almost holding firms to account and seeing ways in which we can almost bridge that gap between like corporates and the local community as well.
That's amazing. And you can have an active role in saying that. So what specifically, like, what does a board member role entail? Like, what do you get involved in?
Yeah, when I joined the board at 18, I didn't even know what minutes were. So essentially, what happens is, we meet every month, and what they do is they'll circulate papers and they'll invite like different people who are working on different projects around the park. So let's say if someone is deciding to maybe build a new music venue or theatre, they would have to circulate papers to us that essentially explain what's going on, like a presentation almost. Then they would come in. All of us would have had to read the papers before the meeting, and then we would basically like because our main role is like holding people to account and that sort of thing, we basically be asking lots of really hard questions that make people's lives difficult. And in that sense, we're really trying to get them to think about what is the impact on the local community that you're coming into. How do we make sure that this isn't just good for profit wise, but also good for the local community's development as well? So yeah, a lot of questioning, a lot of discussions, a lot of like input. So the different organizations will come to us with their strategy as well, and we have the chance to input on what that looks like for young people and how maybe they could bend and change certain things to match the need for young people in that local area as well.
I see. And the reason why I asked that is because, like, if you join the board at 18 years old, that could be unheard of to many, including me. And I think a lot of people who are listening as well might think a board member is, you have to reach a certain level of status, of experience, of years of experience in your career. That makes sense. But you, as like a young person, join a board and is actively like shaping essentially the future of the young people that's growing up in Hackney and these sort of different areas. And were there sort of like sitting on the board, was there specific skills that you've learned that's like made you more valuable and made you more chosen to represent?
I think what it's done ultimately is like my networks are stupid now compared to what it was before I joined the board. Like that I know lots of CEOs, lots of COOs of like these huge organizations that I could email if I wanted to about this and this new project I'm starting, or that something new I'm thinking. But it's also like increased my ability to like think critically about things. I think like when you hear of a new building coming, it's like, oh my gosh, this would be amazing. But it's like, because from this board member perspective as to like really holding people to account. It's like, what are the nitty-gritty details that may be forgotten that would have like a huge negative impact on the community it's coming towards? Like, for example, like I'm not sure I'm allowed to share too much, but there was a new music venue that wanted to almost come to the park, and the structure of it would have radiated a lot of light because of how like the shape of it and that sort of thing, and the sort of like lighting techniques that they would have used. So like a big concern of mine is like the local residents who live there, would this light be a big disturbance to them when there's a music concert happening at, let's say, 11 p.m. and people are working the next day? Would the light emissions be a big disturbance to them as well? And it's those sort of nitty-gritty things that you almost like train yourself to be able to question people about and get to the hardcore details, because ultimately, like, yeah, many are the plans of a man's heart, but it's like people can plan bears, but then they can miss like minor details as well.
Wow. So in terms of this board membership role, you've actually increased your network, CEOs, COOs, people involved in different corporations. You've learned how to, from what you said to me, it sounded like you've learned how to be acute with knowledge and more meticulous. So very much attention to detail. Yeah. And if somebody's listening, and me myself, like, how do you actually get yourself into a board position, and what will make someone stand out and be more valuable in order to be chosen to sit on a board and represent some voices?
So this is a tip that I'm probably going to echo from what we learned at the Valuable Retreat. So when Black Men Teach, so Albert and Jonoy, they did their session, they were really encouraging us guys to join like school governing bodies. Yes. And I feel like any young person who's maybe left the school has like lots of value to add to those governing bodies, and you have a pretty good chance of getting on, just not just because of your age, but by your ability to relate to the students and almost like have shared experiences with them as well. So first, if you're looking to get on a board or any sort of governing bodies, try schools, because they're always looking for input as well. But then in terms of like building up your value as well, like have a good track record as to like for me, I'm big on social impact and community impact, and it's like it's proven in the pudding. Like I've done X, Y, and Z in the past, and I could there's documentation there. Ultimately, it's a statistics run world, unfortunately. So, but there are still statistics to prove what I've done in the past as well, and being able to communicate that, but also like trusting in your source. Almost like when you're speaking to someone, I think we have this almost like proclivity to dumb down or like to dilute the things that we've done, but being able to really speak about that effectively as well, and communicate like your track record as I've been involved in this and I've done that, and being able to do those things, written but also spoken as well, will really get you there as well.
No, 100%. When you said that we normally dumb down what we say, it reminded me straight away of a book or the author Daniel Priestley. I don't know if you ever heard of him. So Daniel Priestley, one of my favorite authors, entrepreneurs, and he's written a series of books. One of them is called Key Person of Influence, KPI. That's one of like, I've read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I've read a lot of finance books, but Key Person of Influence, in fact, let me speak directly to the camera. If you want to build up your influence, not your following. If you want to build up your influence, how you can influence people, influence organizations, influence systems. Because at the end of the day, me and Nana were even speaking about this, I think at a retreat. Yeah. We're speaking about the best way to make change is not to change the people, it's to change the systems. Yeah. So even when you go, because at the end of the day, everything that's guaranteed is like, one thing that's guaranteed is like, we'll all pass away, right? However, if you contributed to building a better systems, the system that you left, the people can still use it and achieve the same result. So Daniel Priestley in Key Person of Influence, he spoke about this idea of that you get what you pitch for.
Definitely.
And what you said, a lot of people, so if me and you, right, we turned up to one organization, we have the same background, same experience, same skills, and we were pitching, or not even pitching, let me not use that word. We met a man or we met a woman, and they were in charge of making some strategic decisions, such as getting us on the board. Yeah. Let's just use that example. Now, she asks, okay, so tell me a bit about your experience. Same experience. If you now go ahead of me and you start pitching exactly how you speak, eloquently, articulation, with confidence, and you're pitching your skills, your track record, what you've done, coming up to this point in time, and I said, Like, I used to do some work in school. Like, I helped out, I've done some stuff. Like, you're not gonna get far.
Yeah.
So Daniel Priestley always says that you get what you pitch for.
Yeah.
And it changed my mind, because now when I enter certain rooms and conversations, I always think about what is it that I want, then how do I pitch for it? Because what comes out my mouth, right? It's like, for example, we sometimes wear many different hats. Does that make sense? Like you said, I'm a graduate from Warwick. Have, little shameless plug, but best dissertation in economics in the world 2022. But also I have different aspirations, such as I'm a creative and I'm a podcast host. Depending on the room that I enter and I step into, I'm going to pitch something differently.
That's true.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Am I going to say I'm a creative or podcast host? Am I going to say I'm one of the world's best, researchers, or I know how to do a really good economics dissertation paper? And that's going to open the next door for me. So I think it's really, really important. So in your time, in your board role, how you made yourself valuable is that you never shied away from pitching about the things that you've done in your experiences. And I love also the fact where you talked about you've always cared about social impact and community. And the skills that you've picked up from your board member role, it sounds to me like you've just built this, I guess, capacity to care about people.
Yeah.
Because it's different. I thought you might come here and say to me that, okay, you grew up Hackney, born and bred, but you're onto better things. You're like, what's Kent? what's Dartford? So, I mean, talk to me about how then you've taken those skills in terms of leadership, in terms of caring about your community, and you transitioned that into a mentorship role at Badu Sports. So first of all, just to be clear to the audience, what is Badu as an organization?
So Badu is a organization that uses sports and mentoring as a vehicle for change. So it works primarily with young people. So in lots of the schools in East London and London itself, primary and secondary schools, just as they did with me, they'd provide a lot of the PE coaches there as well. But they also provide mentoring services in school. And what I look after, the mentoring program outside of schools, which is a whole almost like a course for young people, where we essentially do life with them. We have these like 3 pillars where we look at the person's like career aspirations, their academic aspirations, but we realize that young people aren't just their career or their academics, they're actually people. So we look at their almost like their personal growth as well. So we take a holistic approach to mentoring, and through like themed months. So you came with me in January to do a finance careers carousel, and I brought a few other of my friends. Like through themed months, we basically give our young people insights into lots of different industries, just so that they're aware of what's out there, but also around that as well, build up lots of soft skills and that sort of thing. So we'll have like lots of public speaking workshops, networking workshops. We might take them on experiences and do that sort of thing. So building up well-rounded young people that can go out into the world and thrive.
That's amazing. That's actually, it sounds like I want to join as well, but I already know about the amazing work. So when did you get involved with Badu as an organization? Like, were you a previous mentee?
So yeah, as I said, back in the day, sport, mainly on sport. Then when I went to sixth form, didn't really do as much like competitive sport. I was a powerlifter then. And then in year 13 or so, I joined like the old Badu Mentoring Scheme, which isn't like a proper program as we have it now. But yeah, I joined there, and then soon after that, I started almost like the CEO approached me to lead it for myself, and I had lots of big aspirations and goals for it. And yeah, since then, it's been quite the journey.
Quite the journey, but I want to like not skip the journey. So in year 13, you joined as a mentee or in the mentoring program. Then what, a year later, you're made mentoring lead? Yeah,
actually, it was year 12 that I joined as a mentee. Year 13, I started running it formally, and then I remember just getting like, I think after my GCSEs as well, I had lots of like young G's asking me, "Oh, Nana, how did you do this?" etc. So when I got to year 13 and those guys has gotten to year 12, I basically made this mentoring program out of like young people I knew. So it started like seven young men who all happened to be in Canary Wharf this summer. Like all of them have landed top work and top internships at like BlackRock, Deutsche, and that sort of thing. But it was a very small knit, high impact program. And then ran that went extremely well. They all went to like top Russell Group universities and that sort of thing. And then the organization decided to scale it. So we had like the girls program, but then we also had a 14 to 16 offering as well that launched after we did this free tuition scheme, which was amazing. So it was during COVID. So when I was in year 13, it was cut short for me because of COVID. And what happened was, like, randomly I got a call from the CEO, Nana Badu, saying, like, talking to me about how lots of our mentees, but also lots of young people in general, can't engage with online learning. So what can we do as an organization? So basically what he did was he funded me to hire a local school, and I was able to hire like lots of my old teachers and lots of undergrads, and we put together this free tuition program, which was initially supposed to last for like 4 weeks in the summer. And then, it was high impact. So we had hundreds of young people come through our doors and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Wow. So you went from mentee to literally running a massive mentoring program, giving free tuition to these young students. And what does it take to run a mentoring program? Like what? Because it sounds a bit abstract. Like a mentoring program. What exactly are you mentoring them in?
I think like anyone looking to mentor as well, it just takes a heart for people, a heart to provide support or aid to people. And for me, like structurally, what does it take? It took lots of networking. So like I've had to almost like rely on the people I know, because one, I was very young then, and two, like no one ever knows everything. Do you get what I mean? So like I've had mentors, I still have mentors who are mentoring me and have mentored me, but almost like, so there are times where mentees would ask me questions about a certain industry, about what X, Y, and Z does. I truly don't know. And then I call on almost like the big guns to come and like facilitate sessions and that sort of thing. So networks, I think unfortunately enough, because it was ran with an organization as well, we had the space, we had like because it was after school as well, like budget for food and that sort of thing. But that's not necessarily like key to run a mentoring program. I truly believe it starts with a heart for people and a really like meticulous planning as to how do you create something that is of worth, of value to these people as well, that will truly like impart something that wouldn't be a waste of time for them, because there's lots of good programs out there, but it's like, how do we do something that will truly be life-changing for them?
No, that makes sense. And to be honest, that's why I try to ask, like, what does a mentoring program entail? Because you can't actually, it's not like a one standard fits all, if that makes sense. Because when you're mentoring someone, like, it's all about them individual.
Literally.
Like, it's all about the individual. Like, what do they need? So you think of like your program as individually, what is their needs and how do I meet their needs? And how can I be that mentor, or how can I structure such a program to be the mentor in terms of their needs? And that requires like surely a lot, because you need to spend time with your mentees, you need to understand them, you need to think about what you need to provide, and like you said, some things you don't know, you can't provide, if that makes sense. I remember I read a quote, I can't remember who it exactly is from, but it described a mentor as somebody who helps you realize the potential in yourself.
Definitely.
So not somebody who gives you all the answers, gives you all the ideas, because there's this distinction between a mentor and a coach.
Definitely.
And a lot of people get confused, where a coach is hired more time by yourself in order to push you, a coach really cares about, this is where I am at the moment, these are the goals I want. And of course, it's easy to say list goals and, but a lot of people lack the execution. So a coach is meant to help you get from A to be, might not really care about a lot of the emotional stuff or
what's going on at home.
What's going on? No chance. But as a mentor, right, a mentor can be somebody who you don't even pay for. Like a mentor is somebody who is there to help you realize the potential in yourself, to help push you, knowing all your sort of downsides, weaknesses, strengths, and push you. And I just thought that was like, wow, because growing up, I never really had a mentor physically. Physically. I tell everyone this, that Eric Thomas, so he's a...
Yeah, I know him.
You know
E.T.? Everyone knows E.T.
E.T. the hip
speaker,
hop preacher. Any speaker knows any speaker. So Eric Thomas, literally one of my inspirations, but I called him my mentor because he doesn't know who I am, but I used to listen to his videos like literally day in, day out. I used to listen, and he's a coach. It's funny because he's a mentor, he's a coach, but the reason why I called him a mentor is because, like I said, he didn't know me, but he pulled something out of me that I already had it within. He gave me the insight that I had to know, wow, actually the circumstance that I'm in, I can change it. And what do I mean by that in terms of context? So this was when I think I was in sixth form, year 12, going through a lot of different things, but I just wanted more aspirations. I wanted to leave the environment. And when I talk about environment, physically, but more so mentally. I wanted to leave the environment of the same music all the GMs listen to. The same mentality that everybody had. I wanted to think bigger. Does that make sense? So when I was listening to his videos, he basically, it's funny because he's talking directly to a different audience in America, but it's like he was talking to me. And I think that makes a very, very good speaker, someone that can speak once but speak to many. But let me not sidetrack too much, but to my point, that's the definition sort of a mentor. Like, would you define a mentor any differently?
No, I think exactly that, and someone who essentially does life with you. So I think even my mentor told me about the origin of like the name of a mentor, and it was apparently this guy called Mentor who had a son of someone else left with him, because I think the father went to war or a different far away land, and he almost like helped to raise up this child. And it wasn't essentially that he pushed him and directed him and forced him to do stuff, but as you said, like causing him to recognize that potential and become the man or become the person that he was due to become. So essentially for a lot of my work, it's like doing life with people to cause them to recognize their potential, because like dealing with young people especially, like no one's ever the finished article. Like that's why our application process is, people are surprised that we have one, but it's like we realize that like young people are never the finished thing. So I wouldn't judge mentee applications the same way I judge like for a job, because they're completely different. You've got the young people who have lots of potential but it's almost like untapped. And it's like, how do we unlock that? How do we give you the opportunities, the networks, the resources to be able to almost like become your full self? And that's what a lot of our work is aimed at doing.
Wow. So at Badu, I never knew that. So you actually have an application for people to apply to be a mentee?
Yeah, because it's crazy.
Do you not just pick them off the street?
No, because like, so this year we had like over 100 applications and we only have space for 60. And like that 60 number is like well thought out, like only 15 in each group, just because we try to balance like group cohesion, but also like reach as big reach as we can. And we found over the years that like the bigger the groups, as much as they've got like mentors mentoring them, like there's group mentoring happening amongst them as well. So that group of 7 that I spoke about, the first ever cohort, now they're all still very much together. A lot of them go to the same university at Warwick. A lot of them helped each other when they were all applying for internships and that sort of thing as well, and they've all managed to get to Canary Wharf this summer, so they're very much still together. But then why we have the application process is Badu works with a whole range of people, so not only young people but their parents, and sometimes we have the case where parents are almost forcing their young people to be part of this, and it's like we find that some young people, it works for some, and others they're just completely disengaged. They might not come to sessions, which basically like wastes the space of another person that could have been on the program as well. So the program basically, the application process basically gauges the willingness of the young people to be part of the program. We're not really looking for finished articles.
I see.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you mentioned, because when you talk about mentor, you always mention like, your mentees, young people, and it made me think or realize, because you're a mentor, right?
Yeah.
And you even mentioned that you have your own mentor.
Yeah, definitely.
So we talked about the definition of a mentor, like, but is there any age restrictions to be a mentor? Do you think there's any boundaries that comes with mentorship?
I don't think so. Honestly, I don't think so. I think like, yes, I do think it requires a good level of like emotional intelligence and like mental health, like stability, as to not impart like any traumas that you personally have onto the mentees, because I think that is very possible to happen. But some people say, I'm only 16, 17, I've hardly done anything, how can I mentor you? But then I remember even being in school in year 11, and there was one person in year 9 or year 10 that was like extremely bright, so similar to me, they were probably the only black boy in set 1, but then because of like behavior issues, they were finding it really hard to engage in lessons as well, so they almost asked me to mentor him, and he ended up doing extremely well in that specific science that they were talking about. So I don't think mentorship has like a specific age. I truly believe it has that. It just requires that willingness to like serve and do life with people in whatever capacity you can, because some people require like constant support. I just don't think that's feasible for most people. Like with mentors I have now, we might meet like once a month, and that once a month is perfect for me. But with the mentoring group, we touch base, we have sessions with them every week. Do you get what I mean? So I also think it's dependent on like your capacity as well. Yeah.
No, that's good. And it definitely depends on your capacity, because you don't want to reach a stage where you've taken on so much mentees and you now, like you said, if you don't have the capacity to mentor them and do life with them, it comes a thing where like you're literally giving everyone a little drop,
you literally,
rather than pouring into them. But it's so interesting that you started this sort of mentoring from the year 11, you know, pouring into a year 9. I just figured that as like you're going through your journey right now and you're overseeing, you know, mentorship at Badu Sports, you've founded, or you're overseeing at Warwick Prosper.
Yeah, Prosper Warwick as well.
Yeah, so like, how much mentees do you have under your hood? Like,
right now, all in all, like what I oversee, probably about getting close to 100.
100.
Getting close to 100, but then I think this is the power of delegation, the power of like great teams as well, because it's like a lot like each group has like their own mentoring leads, and like they've got specific people. There are certain mentees that I have personally that I sort of but then the programs I've developed, like they're done in such a way where it's like it's very close contact. I was given a talk about 2 weeks ago about like the need for like tangible close contact stuff, and like with our programs we do exactly that. So although I oversee like over 100 mentees, they actually have like people, they've got contact with me and I touch base with them here and there, but they've actually got mentors and mentoring leads who are actually doing that life process with them as well.
So you have around 100 mentees sort of like that you're overseeing, but you also have mentors that you've put in a structure for them to do the physical engagement, like you said, because otherwise you would not be pouring anything into them, but they have someone to hold them hand and do life. And you've said do life lots of times. Like, what does it mean to do life for somebody?
I think like it's also dependent on capacity, but I've had times where it's like mentees, we're doing a mentee is struggling at school, or a mentee is deciding that this is a good scenario. A mentee is deciding whether to do like go through university or go through apprenticeship options. And sometimes what's happened is like boundaries are important, but it depends on the relationship you have. Like sometimes at 8 p.m. 9 p.m. I'd be working on applications with mentees. Do you get what I mean? I'd be actually on the phone, like we're doing the CV together, we're preparing for this interview together, we're talking about what you're wearing there or etc together. So it's almost like doing life actually with them, like not just imparting lots of knowledge, because they could probably find a lot of that knowledge on the internet. There's like actually like doing it with them if you have the capacity to.
And that's what you do currently.
Some of them mentees. With some of them.
I mean, I guess some people listening, in fact, let me just stop saying some people. Let me say myself. Like, let me get real with you. So I would love to mentor people. I just find that I don't have the capacity because I'm working on myself. I have so much to develop for myself. So how do you expect me to, like, I've got to a point that, you know, you want to speak to me or something, like you have to book a call, like you have to schedule stuff in the calendar. But no, for real. But the thing is, I still want to impact, and like you said, do life with people. So what would you recommend to somebody who thinks like they probably have potential people in mind that, I would be a great mentor to this person. Wow, it actually just comes to my head because there was a young boy, and it's actually quite sad because he went to my secondary school. I won't say his name just for it doesn't have to, but he went to my secondary school. Literally, I think it was 2 or 3 years in the year below. He got kicked out of school, but he lived in my area, and I used to see him like after school. He just used to be out. We call it on the strip. He was just out. walking. I used to see him, and like when I see him, I spot him. Like, how you doing? I said, like, what you doing now? And he used to always tell me like, nah, he's improving because he got in a lot of trouble and he started to go to yacht. Like youth offenders. Yeah, exactly, because he still needs to be in education on some sort of sense. And it was I used to see him, and literally one day, because I went to university, so I wasn't like in my area a lot, but I came back and I saw him one more time, and I was just thinking like, I should just mentor this guy. Like, what's he doing? Like, because he used to just always be out just on the road. And I felt away. Then I thought, I'm a bit busy. Like, I got time. Like, let me. Couple months later, I heard, he was murdered. Yeah. And he was. It was so sad to end up. The way I found out was somebody sending me a photo like, "Raw, have you seen this?" Yeah. And I was like, I was distraught because I was thinking like, this is somebody that I could have mentored and helped in some sort of way, trajectory. Does that make sense? But he got caught up in that life, and I didn't know him like completely, so I can't really talk on that story. But that's just for me personal. So from that experience, like, it always made me think, if there's a chance to mentor someone, why am I not doing it? Yeah. Is it a good enough excuse to say that I'm too busy or I'm at capacity?
I think ultimately in life, like, you make time for what you care about. And I do agree that like some people generally there's a lot on, but then like I don't think like mentorship is as intense as people make it out to seem. Like, one of my mentors now, they oversee 4 companies, for amazing organizations, but they mentor about 30 people. Do you get what I mean? But it's due to like the type of mentorship you want to offer, also your capacity and how you structure it. Like, with me and him, it's like a talk once a month. Do you get what I mean? And it is like odd retreats and that sort of thing. And for me, that's perfectly fine. And I think for that situation as well, sometimes if we try to see mentorship less formally and almost like one of my good friends actually, like how they almost mentor people is like a big brother or big sister sort of relationship, but a older and a younger sort of relationship. And that itself is mentorship, but it's just not as, we don't formally call it mentorship. And it may just start with like those like check-in conversations. Yo, bro, what are you saying? How are you? How's this and that? And once you almost like develop a frequency with it, it almost becomes mentorship without the title. And like, I think in that way, a lot of people who are maybe at capacity or feel they're very busy, like maybe you don't necessarily need that formal mentees that they've applied on a certain program and they've been connected to you. But it's like, look at the local young people you have around you, because everyone has a young person around them, and seeing what ways you can potentially impact their lives. Because there'll be some young people who just aren't on it, which is completely fine. But it's like, even like small check-ins as to like, how's this going, how's that going, like just trying to be present in the capacity that you can. And it just may be odd conversations in like once every 3 weeks, but then that is still an element of mentorship that I think that everyone could be able to commit to if they really cared.
Yeah, no, it's big. And just to flip that on its head as well, I think it doesn't have to even be young people, because you can get a young person mentoring someone who's older.
Definitely.
And you can get an old person mentoring an old person. Like, I don't want to get into age politics, but to your point, so you're recommending that try to mentor in the capacity that you have and do a certain structure. So I think I'm definitely going to take on that advice, because I do have people around me that I think I can really help you in the journey or the stage you're at in your life. Because I think that's another thing with a mentor, right? Sometimes a mentor is just for a certain season.
Literally.
It's not
forever.
It's not forever. You're going through a certain season. You're going through a certain point in your life where you need that guidance. You need someone who has been there, or you need someone, like you said, to just do life with, like take you through that journey. Does that make sense? And we talk about mentorship, and we've just mentioned the word mentor, but there's different categories: a business mentor, fitness mentor, health mentor. And to that point, do you think it's also valuable to have different mentors for different things?
I've definitely got, so like in year 9, year 10, like similar to Victor, or I was a finance bro, whatever way you want to put it. And I had like finance mentors who helped me with all my finance applications, but also like helped me out with finding the necessary knowledge I needed to enter an investment bank. So I had those mentors. I've got like mentors within faith, as to like almost like in this thing that we call in Christianity called discipleship, like people who like, let's say I'm stuck on a certain theological question, or I want to get someone's view on this certain thing. I'd have people I'd go to and ask questions, or people who just check in with me spiritually as well, because I believe that mentorship is actually like a biblical concept, as to like doing life with people. Like in Christianity, it's like going through scriptures with people, like, so maybe someone who's come to new to faith, and like, because coming to faith is quite a scary thing. It's like, where do I even start? What book of the Bible do I read? And often like people have people who guide them through that, and like teach them or impart in them like the key fundamentals you need to almost live a life for Christ. So it's like I've got mentors for different things, and I think personally that's good for me, as to like separating that as well, because my finance mentor, I don't necessarily even know if he's Christian, but yeah, he wouldn't really be able to pour as much into me that I need for like that my spiritual life. Do you get what I mean? So I've got those different mentors for different things.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So you actually have different mentors to cover different areas or needs in your life. And that's really interesting, because I mean, first of all, you said faith, so Christian man of faith. Yes. But no, it's interesting that you said that like you got a finance mentor who can't really pour into you spiritually, because I think sometimes as a Christian myself, like sometimes we can think that if it's only like, if they're not Christian, they have no value or no value add. And this is the valuable podcast where we care about value add, right? So but they can think it's no, I can't, because they're not of the faith, or they don't know what they're saying. They can't give me any knowledge because they're not, speaking of God or from Christ. Like, what's your take on that? Do you think you can extract value from people who are not the same faith as you?
Of course. And I think like, if you're a believer, so this is like a message to believers, like, do well to engage with people who aren't necessarily in the faith, because it's like, let's say we're both believers, like, what is always the point of light being amongst light? Like, it's not only like sometimes like we're so stuck in the four walls of the church that like we don't realize there's a whole dark world out there that needs us out there. They need light out there as well. So even in your local workspace, even as you're being a Christian, your manager may not necessarily be a Christian, but I'm telling you, they've definitely got like value add, because it's like they've got experience, they've got skill, and skill isn't necessarily like something that is exclusive to Christians. I believe that when God made each and every person, he gave us a unique set of skills, abilities, but also handicaps as well. So it's like, whilst you're in that workspace, your manager's probably definitely gifted, or has a wealth of experience. How do you tap into that, and how do you learn from that as well? Because it's not just Christians who are the most gifted in the world.
No, it makes sense. I think the distinction, like you said, it can come with its handicaps, because you can be the most knowledgeable person in the world but still lack wisdom. Literally. Does that make sense? So it's like, and this is why for me personally, and this is the Valuable Podcast, and we discuss all things value. I listen to a wide range of different people. Now there's a difference, of course. It comes with discernment. You begin to learn, and if you don't know discernment, and discernment is something like strict judgment of the truth or what is morally right, and as I prayed for more discernment, I started to understand, okay, who are the right people I should tend my ear to, I should listen to, I should extract value. And even if they're not of the same faith as me, there's still something to be learned.
Definitely.
However, like I said, they can, like you said, there can be a handicap. That can be a lack of wisdom. The scripture in the Bible that says, apply thy heart unto wisdom, so your days, will be numbered. And I think that literally just understanding that we can take value from other mentors, business mentors, mentors who necessarily don't apply to your every need. But if this is, you want to get into this career, whether this is this law career, you want to make your own business, you want to be an actor, a director, like, you can be okay with extracting value from different people. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
And what would you say in your capacity, as we have mentioned, you're overseeing hundreds of mentees, like, what makes you a valuable mentor?
Man, I think it's interesting that like I contrary to what people say, I don't think I'm necessarily good at one thing. I'm good at lots of different things, and I think I've got a broad understand what some people would call a polymath. I wouldn't yet claim that title, but it's like I've got a good understanding of a wide range of areas. And I think for a lot of people who, especially those who are considering lots of different like work fields or like have lots of different interests, I have quite a bit of a value to add as to like when they're considering, I could talk to you about consultancy, I could talk to you about tech, I can talk to you about sport, because it's like my life hasn't necessarily been one way. Like there are lots of people, this is no knock on them, but they've always known they've wanted to be a medic or a doctor, so they've got lots of knowledge about medicine and becoming a doctor. But as for me, it's like I've got lots of knowledge about a wide range of things, and I think fortunately enough my mentees are able to almost draw from that. So especially those who may not know what they want to do, like we're able to, and I think the program speaks to that as well, like we're able to explore a wide range of things as well because I've got knowledge on lots of different things as well.
It's sort of like you know a little about a lot, and that makes you more valuable because you can touch on different areas for sort of catering to a broader sense of needs. But in that you knowing that you know a little about a lot, you can advise your mentees if you need a mentor that's in that specific, then you direct them. I see. And one thing that was very, very interesting to me, I mean, you've already touched on it in terms of faith, is that you started writing and you had your blog page called Filling and Pouring. And honestly, I don't even think I've told you this face to face, but I read your extracts and it's how can I explain it? It's like everything that I was thinking sometimes or I was going through is like you put that out live, like you literally laid it all down. You're transparent, you're vulnerable. There's a specific article called I think it's called Glitters Not Gold, and you talk about how can I explain it? You talk about how we're very hurried in life. You talk about all your achievements that everyone congratulates you for. Or Nana, NYA, the great speaker, he's the mentor, board member, policy advisor. And you talk about how that the accolades doesn't mean as much because behind those accolades, you weren't, you know, feeling yourself. You weren't like in the position to be like, this is great, but some things were happening behind the scenes. And you just like, I'm shocked. I'm just telling you, I'm shocked. The way you writ it, I was like, I'm experiencing that as well. So like, what even inspired you to start that blog?
So I think I've always been sort of looking for a creative like outlet. So like for you like people think Victor's just a finance bro before, but it's like Victor's a creative. Like people don't know Victor behind the like creatively Victor's mind is crazy. Like it's probably as good as his finance mind. But for me as well, like
that's what the girls do.
But like for me, like I've always like really wanted a creative outlet, and I found that I was like really good with words. So it started like maybe 2 years ago, or maybe 2 years ago when I ran like a community running program, trying to get like, I was calling it Get the Mandem into Running, but it was Mandem and Girls. But we basically got like 40 people who hadn't done ran since like PE into running, and to compete their first 5K. And each week I'd send like a mini like encouragement piece. And I found that, bro, I've got a way with words. Like I have to be careful how I use it because hey. But it's like I found that like I was able to choose words in a way and put them together that like I really feel like people were able to get lots of value from. And I felt very confident in that. But then also like I don't believe that we should always rely on outside validation, but that was a lot of people like through those very small pieces were like really like touched and moved and inspired and had a lot to think about for that week during that program. And then it was one random December just before, so a lot of people have New Year's resolutions which I think are amazing, but it was like December 30th and I decided I might as well just start this blog page. So I called it Filling and Pouring. It was based on a scripture of 2 Timothy chapter 4 verse 6 and 7, which essentially says, as for me, the time for my departure is near. Basically talking about how Paul's life is a life but being poured out. So his life has been poured out like a drink offering, and the time for his departure is near. So at a retreat, we spoke about this in like 2 years ago, the retreat in the Bando. So was that retreat. So he said, as for me, my life has been poured out like a drink offering, and the time of my departure is near. Then verse 7 goes, I have fought a good fight, I have finished the race, and I have kept the faith. Yeah. And for me, that life being poured out was so interesting to me. Like, what does that mean? And almost like as I attempt to live this life poured out, which to me means like fully expelling and like using my God-given resources and like leaving the world empty. Like as I attempt to do that, I really wanted to document that as well. But I also realized that like from the many like people around me, like Victor, like mentors, I'm also being poured into as well. Yeah. So it's like I'm sharing these experiences of like me living this life poured out, but some of the things that are being filled into me as well. So it's like, yes, I'm being filled vertically, but I'm also pouring out a lot as well. And I really wanted to document that and share some of like my thoughts and experiences and feelings during that process as well.
Yeah, no, and absolutely you're doing it. Like,
thank you, bro.
If you're listening to this, literally type in, I'm sure if you type in filling and pouring Nana
Substack,
on Substack, please just go and read some of his entries. Like I said, my personal favorite is Glitters Not Gold, but he has many there, and he takes you on a journey and a story. And it's weird because it's almost as if it's still a form of mentorship, but it's distance mentorship. Because instead of you actively engaging, like talking to people, what you're doing is you're showing your life on display, not the perfect bit. You're showing the real life and what goes on. So like we talked about mentoring, we can read it and we can see, okay, this is where he went wrong in certain areas. This is what he's done a bit, so I can learn from that. So it's like you already have a distant mentorship. And one of your entries as well, which again, I love these blogs, but this really shocked me, is that I saw a picture of you what looked like open sea, hand on your chest, looking like you're about to make the most important decision of your life. I think you were getting baptized, and you wrote about that. So like, talk to me. How did you even get to that point there?
So faith-wise, it's been a very interesting journey. Like, God's still working, and I'm like, I think that was probably in a place where like I was like, God's hand in my life was so evident and clear. So I got saved year 12 summer, but then like it was very difficult like starting in the journey, because it's like in my home church especially, there weren't many youth as well. So I got saved in a church, or in the church. It was even a random Friday. I never used to go to Friday sessions, and then the one Friday I go, it's just me and 3 youth leaders. It's like God said, you will be saved. You'll be saved today. You know what I mean? But it was like after that, it was quite a difficult journey, and like one of the main things I kept praying for was like Christian community and Christian friends. And it happened to be that the next summer, whilst I was working in government as a policy advisor, that I found out about this retreat by On Mission now. It was called Numa 21, and I met, like, it was like God and my prayers to God about Christian friends and being in Christian community. God answered that. God answered that exceedingly, and that later that year as well, I went on my first mission trip, and that's why I decided to get baptized. So it was a mission trip out in Tenerife, and I was like, yes, I've made this inward decision, but baptism is almost like the outward expression of an inward decision. So yes, it wasn't the baptism that saved me, but it was like me almost like demonstrating to the world like this, my decision to live a life for lay down for Christ. And I think everything's in God's timing, but it's just that God would have me get baptized out there whilst I think it was the last day of the mission trip as well. And we were walking past the beach, and I decided, and let me get baptized, and it happened
in Tenerife.
What
a way to do it.
Yeah.
And On Mission, so that organization, do you want to speak a bit about what they do?
So they basically equip Christians to know Jesus and make him known. So they do a whole range of like retreats in summer, which I'd heavily recommend, but they also do mission trips as well. So that was my first mission trip. Then I went on another one, and hopefully in a few weeks I'll be going on my third as well, because it's like I've realized like the call to evangelism isn't something that's static. It's very dynamic. As to like when Jesus gives the Great Commission as to go therefore and make disciples, is a very active thing. Yes, I believe that your lifestyle does that, but then I do believe that we should actively go out there and speak to people about Christ and live lives for Christ and make him known. And yeah, on Mission have a range of resources. They've got like online courses, articles. Their Instagram page gives lots of like good like infographics on all things pertaining to faith. And yeah, they were just really instrumental in equipping me with like what I needed to make Jesus Christ more known.
Wow, that's amazing. So on Mission, I think actually if you're listening, they have a retreat coming up in May or June.
I want to say end of June. Yeah, end of June.
They have a retreat 2023 end of June on Mission. I think the title or the focus, should I say, is focus. Yeah. So I've personally been on their retreats before. I went on their retreat in 2022. Honestly, it was one of the best retreats I've went to. Even inspired me to have my own retreat, the valuable retreat, which was a time where we went away in December, and that whole purpose of that retreat was to reflect on the year and think about our skills and think about how we can make ourselves more valuable for 2023. But I think the concept alone of retreats is not just like a faith thing at all.
I don't think so.
It's just everyone needs it. It's a time for you to go away and just like literally drain out the noise. There's a lot of noise in our generation. There's a lot of noise in the world now with these new apps, social media, phones. So a lot of people are distracted. Does that make sense? And it can affect not just your spiritual life, but also it can affect stuff like your career, stuff like your education. I was literally today I done a talk at a school in South London. And one of the boys, so I spoke about their grades and like they're year 11 about to revise for their GCSEs, and one of the boys mentioned, what's stopping him from getting the grades he wants is his phone. I was like, what do you mean? And I didn't say that like I understood it, but I was a bit annoyed. Like what do you mean your phone? Does that make sense? And he was telling me like he just can't put it down. Like I said what you should do is turn off your phone for an hour before you go to bed. And then he told me, he was like, sir, I use like TikTok to fall asleep.
That app, yeah.
I was like, whoa, okay, is this what it's come to? But to that point, it's like we live in a very, very distracted world. So a retreat is a concept for you to get away and drain out and you can I think you mentioned it, so me and Nana ended up in a retreat in a bando in Stratford.
This was very recent in our relationship. Like we had met just once before,
so I didn't even know I didn't even know Nana, but we ended up literally sleeping leg to head.
We've suffered, Victor. It's part of the come up. Story.
And the thing is, not only we never knew this guy in a bando in Stratford, sleeping head to toe, and we're both ill. We're cold.
Wait, you were at
out. We can't mention those names.
Sorry.
But we were both head to toe, and like we were both ill. But I think that's what makes like getting to know each other so unique. Literally just took away, like, although we were in Stratford, we were sort of away.
Yeah, it was so crazy.
Because
it's like Stratford is very much in the end, like it's still East London for both of us. Like, but then it's like we were in a house. I think a key part of it, we were off our phones, like off tech as well. So we had to be together. Like we had to get to know one another, and we had to literally like get rid of the outside world and the outside noise, which I think made it so effective.
And it made it so effective. And what I loved about the fact we were there for the retreat is that you still had other commitments, because I remember going to like bed and Nana used to wake up at like 5 a.m. to go swimming. And I'm like, what on earth are you doing waking up at 5 a.m. to go swimming? And then you told me you're training for a triathlon and you couldn't swim. So talk to me a bit about that. We know that you got into sports when you were very young, but what made you want to compete in a triathlon?
Wait, by the way, Victor, you're good at your job, you know. How you just segued into that? Wow, that's amazing. But yeah, triathlon, so for those who don't know, we spoke about my rowing, but like all those times I was rowing on the water. Let me tell you guys, like we used to have rowing tests, like swimming tests to have race licenses to be able to race. And like the only reason why I could only compete in crew boats is because I failed those tests. Like I couldn't swim. So I'll give you guys a story. Like this is trauma, but we could laugh about it now. Like I can swim now, but it was one swimming test actually. It was the London Aquatic Centre, so in the Olympic Stadium, and we were doing it in the diving pool. Why would we do it in the diving pool? But it was in the diving pool, and for some reason, I'm not going to say how, I fell into the diving pool, and I was struggling. I was trying to come up. Is it like these guys would say, "Yeah, swim back"? I said, "It's not swimming. Like I can't get back. I couldn't get back there." The lifeguard threw me like the circle orange thing. I tried to grab it. It wasn't grabbing.
Wow.
He pressed a big red button. If you know about swimming big red buttons, everyone. So I was the only one in the diving pool, but in the main swimming pool, everyone had to come out the water. Then he had to jump in and come get me. So people don't know. I've had a traumatic experience with swimming, and then I came on the shore, etc. But yeah, so first my school tried to get me swimming lessons, and then after a while, like they got other people some as well, but because the other people stopped coming, they just cancelled it. So it was like I was still at square one, and then it was like 3-4 years. No, so this is 2021 now, maybe 2021 now. The CEO of Badu Sports calls me saying, "Hey Nana, we have this opportunity for you to do a triathlon." This was the day of the Men of Valor conference, like back then. And then I said, it was a Saturday. I said, like, "Sir, you know I can't swim, right?" Then he said, "Yeah, that's the whole point." And then we basically had 1 month, like just over, like, about 1 month or 1 month to basically learn how to swim, to train for this triathlon. So you caught me like as we were learning how to swim. And what's so interesting is like our first swim coach, he basically like stopped coaching us because he believed that we would be a hazard in the water, and we wouldn't be able to complete it. In fact, actually, let me not even say, but there were lots of people who thought that we wouldn't be able to compete in that triathlon, because it's like there were 5 of us, one person could swim, and another person had some experience in the water. They could complete a distance in the pool, but you had like 3 black boys, me, my boy Darren, and my boy Karidi. We sank in the water. Do you get what I mean? We couldn't swim. So at the start of the sessions, we were just getting used to the water, being into it. With me, like there was a lot of like thoughts there as to like what my previous water experience as well, because I wasn't scared of water, but I knew that water could very much carry me and go. Do you get what I mean? So yeah, for we learned how to swim intensely 3 weeks. So as you mentioned, one morning, 5 a.m. I had to get to the pool for about 5:45, like 3 or 4 times a week to train with these coaches to be able to learn how to swim. And eventually, glory be to God, we completed our first triathlon at Blenheim, which was amazing. Shout out to the team as well, and shout out to all the sponsors. And then what's amazing is all those people who doubted, I hate this, all those who doubted me, no, but there were a lot of people who doubted us, and those who watched our story as well. A lot of the story was so inspirational. Like there was a short film made about it as well. So if you go on YouTube, I Am a Triathlete on the Badu TV, you'll see that short film that has me talking about that experience. We saw that the next year, so last year in 2022, we had 23 people sign up to do this triathlon, lots of which were non-swimmers as well. And in fact, the oldest person was about, I want to say, between 63 and 67, who had a very small swim background as well. So each year the program's been developing as well. This year they're looking to get 50 triathletes as well. But even last year's story was so unique because we had people who had like never really stepped into pools before, and stepped into swimming pool before, complete their first triathlon at the London Triathlon. And there's another beautiful documentary called A Drop in the Ocean on Badu TV as well, that really like fully documents that process as well, because it was quite the journey.
Wow, that's amazing. And just quickly explain that. What does it take to do a triathlon? So for those who don't know what a triathlon is, like how many kilometers, what different types of it?
So a triathlon in basic form, you start with a swim, then you move on to a cycle, then you move to a run. And there are different types. So there's a super sprint, a sprint, then the Olympic distance. And beyond the Olympic distance is what you call like Ironman challenges and that sort of thing.
How many like kilometers or miles?
Let's say the super sprint is, let's say, a 400-meter swim in open water. Then you go to a 10K cycle and about a 2.5K run. which is okay. But for like in our first year, we did the super sprint, and I knew that as soon as I come out the water, I'm going to complete this thing. But 400 meters in open water is very different to 400 meters in the pool, because in the pool, if you get tired, you could hold on to the sides. Open water, there's no side to hold on to. Do you get what I mean? But yeah, so that was the super sprint. Olympic distance. Excuse me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's about a 1.2k swim, 10k run. 40k cycle and 10k run, and that is like the super, and that is the like the Olympic distances as well. So hopefully, right now I've actually torn my ACL, so I might not be. I'm in doubts as to whether I'll be able to compete in another triathlon this year. But yeah, if I am able to like train well and get back ready for it, I'll be competing in the Olympic distance this year.
That's amazing, and I think because I've never done a triathlon, like
are you going to this year?
Hey, accountability.
I got you here now, bro.
Honestly, like right now, as Nana knows, he's my head coach. I'm training for a 10k run, and now some of you might be 10k. That's nothing, but that's something to me, because there was a time, literally, I used to run 500 meters and be gasping for breath, for breath. But making small progress over time, and we're gonna do the London run in July, 10k with the Valuable Run Club. Yeah. So as you guys know, if you didn't know, we're not just a podcast, right? We're a community, and we're building a community of members who want to become more valuable and who want to support each other and exchange value in that process. So we have right now just over 50 young professionals and students in the community, where we engage over WhatsApp at the moment. It might be expanding later, but also we have in-person meetups. I think that's the most important thing about this community, is that we meet each other in person every single month, and we also have online engagements on Zoom, and we also have the Run Club, where we actually help each other in terms of running up some kilometers, man, some km. So get them in. So that's the first step for me. But no, triathlon will be something I love to do. So I can swim, but there's a difference between swimming in pool and open water. So I've never swam in open sea. And even when I was on holiday, you know, when the waves come in, I go just about, so when I'm on my tiptoes, I know there's no more. I hear it. It's the end. So I've never reached open sea where my feet is off the ground and I'm just swimming. But I think it's very, very important, because when you're doing athletics, or when you're doing stuff like triathlons and runs, it builds up a different type of mental capacity. Yeah, mental capacity, as you know, like, you know, quitters never win. At all. Because if you quit, you can't win. Mm-hmm. But when you're running, or when you're doing like stuff like triathlons, there's so many times I want to quit, but my body has the capacity, but you just have to win the battle in your mind. You have to say, no, we're going. And I feel like that breaks mental barriers, so mental obstacles that translates into all areas of life. So now my threshold for pain has increased. My threshold for endurance has increased. So definitely would love to run a triathlon. And I'm someone that's done a triathlon before. What would you say are sort of like, how did you build up that mental fortitude in order to complete a triathlon? I think the more you go, the stronger you get. So like, I think with, especially like, I had a lot of like fear and stuff to get over in terms of water. And it's like, the more times I just turn up, so I was able to go even further. And what someone's recently been telling me, like at the Christian fellowship we run on campus, one of my friends are always talking about like feeling the fear and doing it anyways. And I think that's so important when it comes to triathlon, because some people, you may be confident in water, but it may be the distance that's putting you off, or maybe you just dislike running, and there's maybe a fear that comes to like cycling or something. But sometimes you often just need to feel the fear and do it anyways. And that would be like one main thing I'd pose to people when looking at triathlon, as to like, there's lots to be scared about, but it's like, hey, just get into the ring. Like, this isn't boxing, but it's like, just get into the ring to be able to compete, or get to the start line to be able to do it. And it starts with like turning up to sessions, like doing stuff, like going the extra bit. Like, there are bare times when we start in the pool where it's like, the end of the pool is over there, but I can't lie, my lungs are giving way now. But it's like, where does that mental strength, or that mental fortitude kick in for you to force yourself to get to that extra bit? And the more times like you force yourself to get to that extra bit, you'll be able to keep going
longer and longer and longer and longer. And for me, like, there were certain disciplines as to, like, sometimes coach would say we have to do like 60 or let's say 10 laps, and I'd cheat myself as to, like, when I get to the end of the pool, I'd like try rest there. But it's like, Nana, if you think about it, if you cheat yourself, you're only fooling yourself, because when you go into the pool, there's no place for you to rest. You know what I mean? So it's like you develop those disciplines as well as to not cheating yourself. Where that translates to wider areas of life, as to, like, even when I'm at uni or other things like that, it's like, I know if you don't put in the work now, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, you'll only be fooling yourself in the long-term process as well. Can't cut the corners at all. And I think, like, sport has always done that for me, as to, like, translating into other things as well, and building that mental discipline and capacity that translates into other things as well.
Yeah. Wow. So that's amazing. And you can't cut corners
at all.
And the other saying, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
It's crazy because that's such a oxymoron sort of statement, like, because and this is something I wanted to ask you. I get that you're inspiration to many, you're a role model to many, you're a mentor to many. No, it's true, right? You're a mentor to many, but for someone who might be on such a high pedestal, like, do you ever fear that, like, you might disappoint people?
Man, I used to feel like I've blown too early. I'm not even clear yet, but it's like I've got off too early. I've done too much at a young age. And then I remember I even wrote about it on a piece called Who I Am, Not What I Do, because I think we have to do well as valuable people to often, like, dissociate our accomplishments and things we do with, like, our identity. Because sometimes in a point where I found where I didn't do too well on an exam, or, like, I ran a project and maybe it didn't go as well as I'd liked, it'd have a huge impact on my whole entire being. And I found that, like, I needed to do well to, like, almost, like, create, like, a distance between, like, my accomplishments and, like, all the things I've achieved and my actual self, and, like, where I derive my value and my self-worth from. I had to actually, it sounds very cliche if you're a Christian, as to, like, your value comes from God, and it's like, it's God that gives you your worth. But when you truly believe that, is probably one of the most beneficial things that you could endeavor to almost, like, embody. Because for me, especially when you're on this pursuit to becoming a valuable person, like, there are so many things that, like, you might start, like, attaching to your identity, and then, like, God forbid those things go wrong, or, like, you move out of that season in life, you're still almost, like, clutching onto those things that you did long ago, when it's like, there's a new thing now, and you can't really tap into that because your identity is still very much, like, intertwined with the things of the past as well. So, like, in that piece I had to write about, like, who I am. Like, I am a son of the Father. Yes, like, I am Nana, I'm this, that, but it's like, I am not necessarily what I do. Yes, in this period, I mentor people, I run programs, I write, I do X, Y, and Z, and those things are great. They are part of me, but they are not exactly me. Because, like, there have been periods where, like, I've taken a break of writing. Did that mean I wasn't a writer anymore? No. Like, I think Eros did a really good video about this the other day, as to, like, a lot of people are entrepreneurs even before they start the business.
Oh yeah, that video
it was an amazing video.
Shout out Eros. He's in the valuable community. He started posting some amazing videos on Instagram, just giving insights and perspectives on things to do with self-development, professional development. So he wrote a piece on a lot of people, like, exactly like you said, you are not what you do.
Exactly.
But because of the way this world is moving into, when you we spoke about this, right? You get what you pitch for. So it can kind of be double-edged sword, in the sense that you might now come into rooms and say what you do, and that's what people take away who you are. Also, what you do, and people actually ask you that, and then you have to respond, I do this, I run a business. And if that, like you said, if that doesn't happen anymore, God forbid, if you get made redundant, if you're fired, are you that banker anymore? Are you that lawyer anymore? So for you, it's so interesting that, so you, of course, and you derive your value from the fact that you know that you're a child of God,
definitely,
and you're His creation. And I wrote, actually, you can find us on www.valuablepodcast.com, a blog page on what does it mean to be valuable. And I put a little disclaimer before talking about, because of course this is the Valuable Podcast. This is the whole brand I've started because we all have inherent value because we are God's creation.
Exactly that.
You know, you can just choose to yield to him and to, you know, obey him and come back to the Father because at the end of the day you are his child. Does that make sense? But I also spoke about, okay, now we have that understanding as a foundation, but how can you be valued in the earth? Because this, we live in the world right now. Does that make sense? So it's governed by some laws such as give and you shall receive. You don't need to be of faith to give and receive. Does that make sense? It's governed by, and I spoke about this on another podcast I was on with Purpose Led. Shout out them, man. About, they asked me this as well. Like, if I go to a supermarket, right, and I want to purchase something, they're gonna ask for cash. They're gonna ask for money, right? And to be able to get that rewards and that monetary terms, you need to be of value. Someone needs to value you, or value your services, value your skills, value your product. And that's what I try to translate with this podcast. And getting guests to you, like you on the podcast and other people, because I'm trying to translate, okay, with someone that's relatable, with experience that you can see, how can we, you know, position ourselves to become more value to the world? Because at the end of the day, this is not a world of 8 billion people who are Christians or share the Christian faith and have that inherent value. This is a system that we live in that's, like I said, is governed by some sort of law. So you need to demonstrate to the marketplace that you're valuable by your working on your skills, working on your character, working on what you can bring to the table. Does that make sense?
I think we even see it in the, like, as Christians, we see it in the character of Jesus Christ, where scripture speaks about he found favor with God, but also with men. Oh,
that's one of my favorite scriptures.
It should be like, as we were speaking before, like Christians, yes, we're supposed to be aliens and we're supposed to like live these lives, like lay down for Christ and be fully authentically like children of God, of the Most High. But it's like, also you're very much in a world that needs changing, but it's like, well, you can't change what you're not in. And it's like, we very much have to go into this world, like be of value in that world as well. Because it's like, there's certain spaces, if you've got certain maybe spiritual gifts, etc. Like, like maybe they can get you in, but in more time, it's about the value that you bring in that certain context. In that certain context, I remember meeting a pastor and he says, I'm a pastor, but it's like at work I'm not a pastor. Do you get what I mean? He's a pastor in that context, as to like, he like the part, like he's still pastoring all around and he's still a Christian in that space, but it's like he realizes at work, like his value isn't necessarily just that he's a pastor, it's that he brings a certain skill and experience into that field as well. And I think, like, especially people of faith, like, don't rely on your brownie points with God in terms of industry. Yes, I believe God's favor is there and he can move you into spaces as well, but do well to be excellent, because excellence is ministry. Absolutely. You couldn't have said it better. And I think from that perspective, like you said, like even using examples of Jesus, because at the end of the day, he's one of my greatest teachers, turning water into wine. He met a need. Exactly.
He brought value in.
Exactly.
The people of the congregation, they praised the disciples. They didn't understand what was going on, but there was still value provided in that context. So I think, you know, especially as believers, speaking as believers, but even for anyone listening, you've got to think about the world we live in. You've got to really contextualize your value and how you can provide that. And I think that's what then you start to understand and can equip yourself. Okay, purpose now. Okay, so what is it I'm meant to do? What am I good at? How can we marry these things together? And
exactly that.
Wow, exactly that. I'm learning so much right now. I'm learning so much right now. No, NYA.
Hey, we've finally done it though.
We've actually finally done it. I guess let's just take a moment of silence. I don't know.
It's so interesting because it's like I'm even thinking as to like this thing called ministry. Like a lot of us like view it in a very formal like church context, but I ministry in the New Testament especially, like it comes from this word like diakonia, which means to provide support or aid. And for like you like very much like even in your job or even in your passion projects, that is still ministry. And it's like doing things like, especially whether you're Christian or not, like value especially is enhanced when you do it excellently as well. And it's like even when you're providing support and you're providing aid to people as well, make sure there's a culture of excellence behind it as well, because I think sometimes it's like we forget that like a lot of the world has bare like people who can write, but what makes you unique? Like, is there an excellence about your craft as well? Like, so even on this podcast as well, it's like value. You can't really have value without excellence.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Excellence speaks for itself.
Exactly.
And I even said results speaks for itself for my story earlier today, but it's that excellence that's demonstrated that will get results.
Definitely.
And it's of value to be excellent.
It is.
So I think that's a call to everybody, including myself, and you're like, we should try to be excellent in what we do, but it's easier said than done because there's only a certain motivation or willpower you have to be excellent in something. Does that make sense? But I think if you're listening and you are in a specific industry, field, you're going for something particular, try to be excellent in it. Try to do it well. And that's something that I've always tried. If I know I can't do everything, but if there's something that I'm really keen on doing,
do it excellently.
Yeah, that's good, man. Listen, it's been a pleasure. NYA, it's been a pleasure. I just wanted to ask you one more question just to close this out in terms of like I said, this is where we discuss all things value. If those like 3 things you can just drop the listeners in your life that you think is valuable, valuable tips, valuable lessons that you've learned that's got you to the stage you are right now as a mentor to many, what would that be?
Oh, man, you put me on the spot here. I think it'll follow what we were just speaking about now, like the first one of like always being cognizant of who you are and not just what you do. Like I think like especially in the storms of life, or like when things aren't necessarily going your way, like your anchor is essentially always on like who you believe yourself to be, and there's like have a strong understanding of who you are as well. That is something that I've had to train myself to do, and I'm continuing to do, but I do think is very beneficial. 2 is I want to say this one, but it's something I'm still trying to work on, is like for valuable people, please take like periodic periods of rest. Like I'm even getting grilled now as to like how my past month has been. Like in the past week or so, I've traveled to London maybe like 8 times. Why am I traveling to London 8 times in a week?
Traveling from where?
From uni and other places as well. So it was like I was speaking at events, I was coming back for mentoring things, and it's only like maybe in the past week and a bit that I've had to travel that frequently, but a lot of my life is spent like traveling, moving around, speaking at that sort of thing. But it's like without rest, like you can't pour from an empty cup. And for a lot of us as well, in this pursuit to be like high value people, is like burnout is so prone, and without that rest, I think each and every person will eventually burn out. So like for me, like as we spoke about retreats, I do like to go on retreats, but also like holidays as well. I think are so key. I think like with a lot of value, I guess like people amass wealth or like are trying to amass wealth as well. But I think like be very much aware that like your value maker in this life, like you need your body to do it. And if your body isn't functioning correctly, then say bye to the money. So like, invest into health as well. And like please do take periods of rest. And what would the last one be? The last one would be like live like unapologetically yourself.
Okay.
I think like we were speaking about before, as to like me growing up in Hackney, I felt almost this hood tax, or as to like dilute my skills, dilute my character, like not be too much or do too much in certain spaces. But I do believe that it's by virtue of like myself and being myself that has got me into certain spaces. Like it was like, let's say Project 2% that you hosted at last year for us. Thank you, by the way. But it was like that, like a lot of the sponsorships for that came by like me being myself and me like being unapologetic about the things I do and like speaking to people about it. And that was like, this was whilst I was on my internship, this was like during meetings, this was during like networking events. But it's like being boldly yourself not only like gets you into positions, but it allows other people to be boldly themselves as well. And I think like that's something that I'm starting to really value about being at Warwick University, especially when you have so many like creatives or like people who are doing amazing things. It almost spurs other people on to almost like be unapologetically themselves as well. So it's like by you fully like showing your light, it almost like ignites lots of other lights within people as well. So those would be the three.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. And I just want to say that to me, you are more than a mentor.
Thanks.
You are more than a mentor, and I can see it in your mannerisms. I can see it in how you talk about people and how you care much more. So it's like, yeah, you're really, to that scripture you mentioned in Timothy, living a life poured out.
Thank you, man.
You're really doing it. So once again, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. For people listening, where can they find you? Where can they contact you, get in touch with some of the things you're doing and read up on you?
Man, thank you for having me. So I'm trying to get bigger and not get bigger. I'm trying to show more of what I do on Instagram as well. So it's Nana, NANA.Y.A. That is on Instagram and on TikTok as well. And LinkedIn, Nana Yaw Antiedu as well. So that's NANAYAWANTIEDU. Those are the main places to like contact me personally. But then also a lot of the programs and projects I look after as well. Badu _mentoring. That is the mentoring program I run. There's also Project 2% as well. Our annual conference as well. And yeah, I think those are the main two things, to be honest.
No, it was a privilege having you.
Thank you, bro.
And last but not least, if you're listening and you want to be part of the valuable community, where you want to be part of the journey to becoming more valuable and connect with people like myself, with Nana and 50 other members, wherever you're listening, feel free to click the link in the bio or hit the link to sign up to the valuable community. And last but not least, we have merch. We have valuable hoodies. So if you want to get one of these and show your support and wear one, again, make sure to find the link in the bio somewhere to purchase your valuable hoodie. But it's been a pleasure. Great episode, and I'll see you guys soon. You did it, so? You did it. Ooh, finally.
How long was that, sorry?
I have no idea.